Alright, well, the time has finally come. I'm taking this rake out for my first outing with it, as far as the first time I've ever ran it. My dad has currently clocked in all of the hours on this rake so far, and we got the couple little bugs worked out of it, which couple tack welds, and we were good to go. Alright, so what I am doing, this rake has manual adjustments and manual engage and disengage for the teeth. And what I'm doing there is I'm dropping it down, ideally evenly. I'm trying to get the height set so I'm not running these teeth into the ground, because for some of you that remember, this rake has all new teeth on it, all new or 2 new bars across it. And I would really prefer to have, if I'm not fortunate enough to have all of the teeth still on it by the end of the hay season, it would be nice to have a large share of them still attached. So for the most part, I have that adjusted. Now the problem is, we never had this issue with Grandpa's rake, but the handles that you just saw me adjusting, Dad was running this rake earlier in the day, and we had some issues, and he had to go get parts. Dad noticed that the handles were actually turning out, and it was actually dropping the rake down and doing exactly what we don't want. It's pushing the teeth down into the ground as it's running. Simple fix to that, bungee strap. I'm just connecting it right to the handles, and problem solved. Yeah, and you see, as goes to my expression, it's simple as that, right? But here's the thing, when it's a manual machine, you forget to, yep, that's right, engage the rake. So having the open station 4020, you can get in and out really easily, is nice, especially for this rake, because you have to engage it and disengage it and raise it and lower it between every field, otherwise you risk damaging the rake, namely the teeth. So as you can see on the far left side of the rake, I am missing hay. I'm doing that on purpose, largely for what I just said. I'm trying to save my rake from any potential damage. New teeth. This is the second day we've ran this rake, and it's the outside edge of the corn, so there's a pretty good chance, I'm not saying it's a certain chance, but there's a pretty good chance. And I'll point it out right now. You can see we have some seeding that didn't come up. I gotta go through and seed that down. I've said that in the past too. You get clumps of dirt on your field edges between the corn and the hay and your last pass, and generally when you cut it for the first time, you collect a lot of that dirt. Sometimes you don't, and I just want to save my rake from getting damaged, so I'll sacrifice a little bit of hay being left behind. This stuff has been on the ground for 3 days. This is the day 3. We're raking it up. I tedded it the day before. It is fairly dry. It's green. Yeah. You can definitely tell as it's going through the rake. You're getting some green spots in it, but it's dry. It's green, but it's some of the driest stuff we've had in quite a while, to be honest. I mean, June, blue sky for the most part, sunny, 80 degrees, and a nice little breeze really does wonders for getting hay to dry down. So we're out at my brother's place. I'm raking up grass. I prefer grass anymore. We're not out Ryan's anymore. I prefer grass. To be honest with you, I don't have a whole lot of desire to raise alfalfa. I mean, I like the way alfalfa smells when you get it cut freshly, but as far as making it and the tonnage wise and like feeding it to beef cows, I just don't really feel like the beef cows need it. I feel like grass will work just fine. They'll eat grass all summer, go through and make grass, bale up some grass for them, and they can eat grass all winter. I mean, I've been feeding my cows up at the home farm that lower quality hay. I keep saying it just because it is what it is, and they're really not losing much of their conditioning because they are also getting the fresh grass out in the pasture. Albeit there's not a lot there because they're keeping it grazed down really well. But let's look at the bright side. There really aren't much for weeds or thistles coming up. So right here you can see pretty much why a lot of people generally are turned off from these rakes. They say it likes to rope the hay as it's going through the machine. So you can see it is rolling it ahead of the teeth, and then it's throwing it, or potentially laying it, out the side of out of the side of the rake. And the problem is people say that it makes a rope of material that the wind can't penetrate, and it doesn't let your material dry down. Good argument. I can't say I've really noticed that growing up. I mean, you raked it, and if you had to go through and rake it again, you just did. There's a lot of things growing up that we never really thought twice about, that now at this point in my life that we're actually looking closer into and keeping a closer eye on, that we just never did growing up. I mean, looking back, seems like we were a little bit more relaxed, more chill on some of this stuff. Of course, maybe it was because we were young enough. I mean, young, teenager, whatever else. You just went and drove tractor all day. Now, when you're older, as such as me, when you're worried about making money and not just sitting in a seat turning a steering wheel all day listening to the radio, I guess you kind of, your eyes and ears are a little bit more aware of what's going on around you. So what I'm doing right here, because this rake discharges all of the hay on the left side of the machine, I actually have to open up the field. And by doing that, I went around the outside once and threw all the hay towards the inside of the field. That's what we already did. Now what I'm doing is coming back. I'm trying to pull in as little as of the new material as I can and throw it back out towards the outside of the field, because I'm going to rake the rest of it singly, which means singly means I'm just doing one pass. Doubling it means I'm going to go out like I just did, but then I'd actually, if I was going to double it, I'd be farther to the right, and I'd actually pull in approximately 18 feet altogether into one nice healthy windrow. Typically for first cut, when it's nice and healthy and thick, you do rake it singly. But what I'm doing, if you're wondering why I'm not all the way or more to the left and I'm throwing just the width of this windrow that I'm currently driving over out, is because I don't want to discharge it from the rake into the fence line. Ask my uncle. Growing up, they used to laugh at him because he was helping us rake hay one time, and I believe he wasn't paying attention to the orientation of where the rake was, and he was raking all of the fresh made hay into the corn standing next to him. So, oh well, life lessons, right? And you can see right there, that's what I'm trying to do. It's about perfect, because I still need to be able to swerve the baler back and forth to make a nice round bale, because you gotta, with these smaller windrows, you actually have to swerve more to make an even uniform bale. Otherwise you get lopsided bales, and those just aren't really fun to stack, aren't fun to move. They're a headache, long and short. And you can see a little bit of the roping right there too, where it's kind of spinning it. But I'll live with it. We ted. All this stuff was tedded out, so it was actually fairly dry, laying out flat as it was before I raked it. And to be honest, if this stuff just doesn't dry down, or it is still holding moisture on the bottom of the windrow, I'm trying to make quality feed. I'm not trying to make junk. This stuff has a lot of its color yet. It looks really nice. You guys you only get to see what the camera catches. You guys don't get to see the smells, wow. You smell what the hay smells like as you're raking it up, and it really reminds me of my childhood. As really odd as that sounds, it does. I haven't raked like this since 2013. So at the earliest, I mean, we're talking 7 years? Yeah, I'm getting old. So this is probably gonna be one of Lena's jobs someday. Absolutely. Doing a little bit of hill climbing with the 40/20, and I didn't catch the smoke, did I? No, one of these times I went up. I don't know if I wasn't sure if I had the camera on. I was actually rolling smoke. The 40/20 used to do a lot of the raking, probably more raking before I came around. Dad actually went out of his way to make sure that Ryan and myself never really drove the tractors without fully enclosed cabs, like the sound guard cabs. Safety. He was looking out for us. He didn't want us to be put on a machine that could potentially throw us, or we could fall off and get killed. So, Dad was definitely looking out for us. I did a lot of raking with the 2955. That's actually the first tractor, and a New Holland 256, which is what my grandpa had for a New Holland rake. That is actually my first memory of me basically getting my right to farm, driving tractor on my own 100% without somebody riding in the seat or on the fender or on the tractor wheel or on the tractor wheels, the tractor steps, into the cab, at least keeping an eye on me what I'm doing. So as far as that story goes, the guy that was supposed to show up and help rake hay, this is when we only had 2-bar rakes, a John Deere and a New Holland. The guy that was supposed to be helping Dad rake that day didn't show up until afternoon. I was there, of course, because I went to the farm with my dad, and he hooked up the 2955 and said, "Follow me, I'll tell you what to do, I'll show you what to do." And it was all hand signals, showing me where to drive, where to stop, when to drive, and it just evolved from there. It went from one thing to the next. Raking hay and actually hauling in round bales. We never had a hay wagon. We didn't really use the truck and flatbed that much. Growing up, at my place, we used to make 150 to 200 bales for first crop, round bales, albeit. And I used to haul those in one bale at a time with a single bale, 3-point mounted bale mover, and the 2955. Generally, I'll be honest with you here, it was Grandpa keeping me busy because it was a 2 or 3 day job. I stayed out of his hair, and believe it or not, when you're 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, you're pretty content just driving tractor, listening to the radio, and watching the world go by. It's just the way it was. Times were a lot simpler when we were younger. I mean, I think everybody could agree with that, right? So we're actually already into my leftover footage. I've talked longer than the video that I edited, so I guess you guys can enjoy it while I'm talking here. So the sprayer didn't get used yet. The sprayer's ready to go. We have about 70 acres of hay to cut yet, and then we'll be done with first crop. And the list of things that need to get done is growing by the day. So I'm actually back to wanting to cultivate. Not necessarily crazy about it, just because the corn is starting to get taller. But I have a field, yes, a field that I came back and bit myself in the butt on, because I cut and raked a bunch of corn fodder back in December, and what happened? I didn't make it. So those windrows sat all winter long, and it shows in my corn that is currently growing. It's yellow, it's stunted, it needs 60 units of nitrogen yet. Andrew was planning on dropping it anyway, but to be honest, I'm really leaning towards saving myself the money on the application cost, going through and doing a mechanical removal of any of the weeds. I do have a little bit of volunteer corn, not a lot, coming in that I got to do something with, because corn prices not be much, but you know what, as far as just throwing in the white flag or throwing in the towel, just because grain prices are terrible, why are you farming? I mean, if you're just going to give up when prices are terrible, then maybe you shouldn't be farming anymore. So that is what it is. Why do we go through and we cultivate corn? I'll answer this probably in another cultivating video if we get to that point. But the reason that we cultivate corn to eliminate volunteer corn in a cornfield is because you worry about yield drag. Ideally, you plant your corn plants 30 inches apart between rows, and then 5 to 6 inches apart from each other. Because the scientists and the gurus and all the higher ups that be have come to the conclusion that each plant has to be placed evenly apart to get the most nutrients, the most out of the nutrients that are available in the soil. When you get a plant that is bunched up with a bunch of other plants, they start competing for each other, and then you essentially get nothing out of them, because generally if they're stressing that much for nutrients, they're not going to produce in here in general. So ideally it's a picket fence corn stand, and you're not missing any corn, but you don't have any doubles. And I don't need to be talking about row crops when we're raking hay. So I think that's enough for this video. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for tuning in. The baler blew up. That's probably going to be the next video that I try to get up for you. I went out to rake tonight. Or not rake, went to bale after we got done raking tonight. I was going to try to bale some of it up. I didn't even get one bale made. That was a pretty good one. So hopefully you guys can stay tuned for that video. So until next time, take care, take it easy, keep in touch. I'll talk to you later.